Hey, hello. So today I'm going to be going through some of the news that we've got. There's been quite a few streams. We had PlayStation, we had Nintendo, and we also had some Vanguard streams. So um, there's the Dear Days news, some artwork here. For some reason, a few of these guys in glasses remind me of some characters in recent Nintendo reveals and games. Like, for example, this guy here at the top in the center with the glasses looks like Richter from Tales Symphonia Dawn of the New World. Symphonia, by the way, is getting a remaster as well. It's been revealed on Nintendo stream. This guy on the right with the glasses, he kind of looks like Tyon from Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But yeah, the art style, it looks pretty cool. I kind of like it. It's different to the anime, actually, as well. And yeah, it's kind of fresh, but it works as well. And then on to the next slide, we've got a whole bunch of products, which I presume this is all going to be confirmed in the game as well. But they mentioned DLC. Hopefully the DLC does actually include like live service updates to adding new cards as well. Like, I think it's good if they build like a database of cards to use as well, and recycle in future games as well. I think that's what Yu-Gi-Oh has been doing as well. It's really good as well for longevity, and yeah, it's just good in general to have that sort of engine kind of being built. But it looks like Lyrical Monastery 3 isn't in it, and neither is Set 6, at least on release for now. Then we've also got Aichi, Kai, and Ren, so I think the fact they're going to be in the game probably means they're going to be playing the Encounter Ride because it is based on D standard. So Mage Lord, Overlord, and Phantom Blaster Overlord as well. And obviously Phantom Blaster Dragon, well, luckily in D series didn't have a serial number this time, because that was not a very nice experience, just a really bad kind of flashback. I'm kind of glad they dialed it down a bit here in the D series version. Anyway, moving on, I thought this was a V-Clan collection reveal, but turns out this is actually overdress, so Minerva's coming back as an encounter. Maybe this will make for some interesting lore. But the other thing as well is that, obviously, I've been wondering how they're going to do this, like in overdress, because Angelica was basically the break ride, and obviously you'd place Minerva on top. In G-Era, they did the same thing, whereas Strider and Stride, and then V-Series, they changed it though, and they went with Angelica being the boss. But then CU still became, who was originally her own deck, became a support card. Which, by the way, speaking of CEOs, Amaterasu and Yggdrasil both are CEOs that have gone from being boss cards to then becoming support cards for like every version of their own deck. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know if there's a story to that, like if it's to do with Kidani maybe deciding to step back in Bushiroad. I don't know if there's an inside joke. Because he's done this sort of similar thing as well. Kidani is probably Amaterasu and Yggdrasil incarnated, so yeah. Then the other thing is, this is actually a cover card. I'm thinking, because it's Persona Ride mechanic though, it feels like Angelic wouldn't really fit quite right, because Persona Ride is kind of different to past Vanguard mechanics. It's not really like combining bosses together, so I don't know if they're going to do like a Thegoria thing, or if they just decide to make Minerva her own deck altogether. But I'm also wondering what the ride line will be, because we could end up with maybe Amina Hawakari or Prey Angel as a starter, maybe Ordain Owl as grade 1, more likely one I think. Grade 2 could maybe end up being maybe Goes to Choose Jupiter finally gets a retrain, or we could end up with Freya as well. Although, yeah, Freya's a kind of interesting one, because she used to be CEO support, but then she became G-Era support for Angelica / Minerva. And then that kind of like, yeah, it shows you kind of like how they're probably willing to shuffle things around. And obviously Ordain Now's come back in V-Series without Minerva, so yeah, I think anything's possible. They might change playstyles, because they've shown that they're willing to do that in V-Series. They might change what cards go with what as well, as they've shown before. So that's something to look forward to as well, but something not to look forward to, especially as a high rarity collector who has, on top of all the max rarity and ASRs and everything, also has BSF and BCS Astropose. So I do collect Genesis cards quite heavily. I actually stopped collecting high rarity for a while when they revealed Phantom Blaster Dragon 909, because I got really put off by the serial number concept, and it just felt like it was just going to get into a very scalpy kind of area. And then obviously the Ultra Rainbows happen at the same time, which is also insanely high rarity. Then there was also the whole thing with Chariot Expo. Obviously, the cards didn't end up being that high in value in the end, or at all. But the thing is that it just felt like too much going on in one go, and it just put me off. And I thought, you know what, I don't feel safe collecting this stuff. And then eventually I kind of got back into it again with Astral Poets. And I think I seem to have complained a lot less with Astral Poets than I think I will about serial numbers. So it's not the best news. I'm sure like Shadow Paladin players who used to Rarity collect were getting a bit of anxiety. I know Grand Blue players are getting a bit of anxiety with getting a hold of RLR Night Roses at the moment. So it's not the most pleasing news. But this being an earlier set, I mean, I really hope there's enough copies, because Phantom Blaster in the English game apparently never reached even half the copies in the numbers. Apparently it was like the latest recorded one I've heard is in the 200s. So it didn't have as many as in Japan. And that's obviously not a good thing. But this card is definitely being targeted towards the Japanese audience, because Minerva has never really been kind of... I mean, yeah, sure, Regalia is a little bit popular at the moment now. It's not that overplayed though, but it's to be fair, a lot of decks are kind of popular anyway in Vanguard, but there's a lot of people willing to kind of at least collect and build it nowadays. And I think the thing is that with the Japanese audience is that this has sort of like been a thing where, because of the Tony Taka name recognition and the Shining fans, although I'm not sure if Shining still makes games, because I mean, we've had Shining Resonance, which is the more famous one. That got released in English some years ago as well, way after the Japanese release. So it's been a long time. It's a PS3 game. So it's been out for a long time. And obviously, the thing is its brand isn't quite as big internationally. It's never gone that far. Shining used to be an English game originally. Like it was released in English, the first two, Shining Force 1 and 2. I'm still stuck on Fighting Chaos, by the way, but they were really fun. It's just a shame you can't go and grind level up in those games. But they've changed a lot. Like the gameplay has changed a lot. The studio that makes the games changed. Even the artists changed, because Tony Taka didn't make the early games. He jumped in a bit later and became the main artist. And I think they're just trying to appeal to that. So there's also the fact that because it's an encounter and it's a recognizable unit from the old days of Vanguard, they're kind of attracting attention by having this as a cover card, as you can see on the display box and the booster pack cover. I mean, you walk into a store, a Japanese store, you see this. I'm sure you'll stop for a second and think, oh wait, I know that card. And even for the English players, that's also going to have the same effect as well. So this is clearly a very marketing savvy set compared to some of the other ones that we've got. They're using the fact that there's no anime support, because I don't think there's any anime cards in this set. I think this is based on the video game, based on encounters, and it's also based on Craycross Epic. And by the way, Luquia and Maelstrom are in this set as well. So that's why I think they're taking this. The artwork, by the way, they've basically they've changed a few things. So the shield is now down. You can see that there's a spell being cast there. There's a little orb. You can see the owl, because there's no shield to stand on. The owl has now moved over to the tree branch on the right hand side as well. And there's a bit more expression on the card now than there used to be. Back in the day, it was a bit neutral. So that's more or less it about it. So I'm excited to see how the card works as well. I guess I'll try and build it in premium. I know it's probably going to be a bad idea, but I do want to meme around with it. So any Regalia support I will take, or any Jones support, please, because I would love to try out some other archetypes as well. And I don't think the dragon did enough, to be honest, to make it kind of... Because in Regalia it's much better than it is in other Gens decks I found. And then moving on to the restriction list, we've got the Odysseus, and we've got the Mystery Flare Dragon bands, which is new, but the Ruination Dragon, that's now been limited in Japan too. So if you're planning to go to a premium event and you're turned off because you don't want to get high rolled, or you don't want your opponent to just be doing, putting you in a situation where you couldn't afford to ever deal them damage because otherwise they'll just explode on you, then obviously now they've been dealt with. To be fair, with Ripples especially, I mean, sure, you could have hit, you could have gone after in a Reinnovate Dragon and Mystery Flare to bump down the consistency significantly, but with Odysseus, the thing with that card is, like, to be fair, you actually didn't even have to ban the card to nerf ripples or even touch it. Like, there's actually a lot of things with ripples that, like, I think no matter how you touched ripples, it was going to get nerfed. Because there's always been these kind of stories where people say, oh, we can't figure out what card we want to hit in a deck. And then, like, Prism's being a recent example in V where people were kind of speculating on what kind of hits would nerf the deck. And in the end, it came down to, like, the last thing that happened was Rosa getting banned. After people just kept on talking about the support cards, the generic Bermuda cards. And then ripples, it's kind of weird because I think, like, you took out damage adders. If you took out Thavas, even if you choice restricted Valios, Thavas, and Genovius, even if you do like a rule on Axel Circles, because to be fair, Axel Circles have actually gotten a lot of cards restricted now in premium format. I actually think ripples would have been nerfed one way or another. Like, there are definitely a lot of ways you could hit ripples in a way that would nerf the deck but not kill it. But I do think now in premium it's dead. I don't think, or dead in the water to make it into a bit more of a joke, but I think they're not really going to be seen as much. I feel like people would rather play other decks, like Thavas, for example, I think would be way more popular. I think the fact that you've got the stride mechanic now doing almost just as much, well, obviously Ripples was very cracked with Odysseus, producing more Axel Circles faster, so you didn't need to stride. But now it's like, oh, okay, fine, if I can't do that, I'll just stride. Which means then it becomes more interchangeable with other boss cards, because then Genovius, he just becomes like kind of a high roll boss if you want to use him for the high roll. And you can do a bit of consistency searching. I mean, that's kind of good. The top 5 did do a lot. Like, even, to be fair, I feel like Genovius, if they had, like, even if it was a vanilla, I think as a vanilla, Genovius would have been a lot weaker. Nowhere near as good. I think it's a mixture of a few things, like restanding, but not just a restand one. I think it's a limit break, because the limit break had the whole hostage situation where it forced the opponent to play more passively, and that obviously could lead to a lot of awkward situations where it ends up punishing the opponent more. The fact that you can force limit break with damage adders meant that your opponent couldn't even heal out as easily. There was also the whole thing with the check top 5, which added a lot of consistency to the deck. And kind of funny because Mystery Flare Dragon has been around for a long time, just like Odysseus. But Mystery Flare Dragon, being around for a long time, it just became a bit of a meme until it became consistent enough. And then the true powerful card ended up, well, yeah, doing what it was supposed to do, as stated on the card effect. So that's more or less it. So let me know what kind of news did you find most exciting. I will be basically doing a video after this where I talk about how I think the environment will change, what decks I expect will see more play as well. There might be some there you'll probably recognize as well, but I'm sure there'll be some that maybe you may not have considered as well. So I'll go through that as well and just kind of put my kind of thoughts on that. Until then, I will see you guys later, and yeah, just let me know down below what kind of news interests you the most, or how do you actually feel about like high rarities, like, well, exuberant high rarities, like the as a high rarity collector yourself. Have you had any like kind of bad stories, especially if you're like a Shadow or Grand Blue player, Bermuda player maybe? Until then, I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.